We're continuing to follow the big story of the day. The FBI recommending that no charges be brought against Hillary Clinton in the investigation into her use of private email while she was Secretary of State. This comes as President Barack Obama will join her for the first time on the campaign trail this afternoon. The president will rally voters alongside his former Secretary of State in Charlotte, North Carolina.
FBI Director James Comey made the announcement this morning, and he emphasized that there were no political considerations in the decision.
What I can assure the American people is that this investigation was done honestly, competently, and independently. No outside influence of any kind was brought to bear. I know there were many opinions expressed by people who are not part of the investigation, including people in government, but none of that mattered to us. Opinions are irrelevant, and they were all uninformed by insight into our investigation because we did our investigation the right way. Only facts matter, and the FBI found them here in an entirely apolitical and professional way. I couldn't be prouder to be part of this organization.
Washington Post reporter Amber Phillips is in Washington, and here with us on set is Liz Smith, a Democratic strategist and former deputy campaign manager for Martin O'Malley. Liz, to you first. While there will not be any legal repercussions for Hillary Clinton, there's certainly going to be political fallout. Do you think her camp, I mean, they can't be out there dancing and sort of dancing in the street that this is a favorable decision for them?
Yeah, and I think that they need to reassess their whole approach to this from the get-go. And I've been on the show before, and I've said that I think the way they've handled this has been a disaster. And so while Comey did not recommend a criminal indictment in this case, I do think he did indict her trustworthiness and her sloppiness, really, at the State Department. And those are things that the American people will have to assess. And those feed into long-running problems with her, with the American electorate.
Amber, I'm scared to ask what the new nickname might be in a few hours when we hear from Trump. How is he going to react to this? And will this only re-intensify his view of Clinton as being crooked and above the law?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I'd note that today is one of the few times I've seen Donald Trump and Paul Ryan actually agree on something. And that something is, how could the FBI say that Clinton broke rules, was careless, you know, didn't handle the things the way that a Secretary of State probably should, and then not prosecute her? Both of them issued statements and or tweets saying as much. And I think it fits into this really neat narrative that Republicans have been making for some time, that the Clintons feel like they're above the law. And we saw Donald Trump say that today, and Paul Ryan, in expressing disbelief, frankly, that the FBI wouldn't take that next step in their argument to try and indict Hillary Clinton.
But Liz, I want to ask you, I mean, James Comey is viewed as an impartial person. Why would he, knowing that the press and the other political operatives are going to dissect this decision, if he was somehow part of this, what Donald Trump is calling #rigged system for Hillary Clinton? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, no, I agree. I don't think he is. And I think the reason why we saw him go out and give this statement was because it was so high profile, and he wanted to provide some transparency around it, and maybe even provide some cover for the FBI here. But I think, you know, what Amber was saying, yes, Hillary Clinton did break the rules, but that's different from breaking the law. And I think that's the distinction that Comey made today. And Republicans can have a field day with it, but then the onus is on Republicans to find, when they talk about this two systems of justice, find similar cases where the FBI recommended charges. You know, so far I've seen them pointing to the Petraeus case, which was vastly, vastly different, where there was clearly intent. And in this case, we saw extreme carelessness, but no proof of intent.
No proof of intent. Amber, I want to ask you the timing of all of this. Obviously, this is sort of a rescheduled trip. The president and Hillary Clinton were, I believe, was Wisconsin. They were supposed to go a couple weeks ago. That was canceled, and this was the new date for them. North Carolina, it's a purple state. It's a state that the president won in 2008 but lost in 2012. The timing of all of this, and in the battleground state of North Carolina, how is this going to impact her campaign?
Yeah, well, I think it dominates the news cycle today on a day when she had hoped to be seen side by side with an incredibly popular among Democratic voters president. They're heading to North Carolina, obviously, because they think they have a shot at making sure Hillary Clinton can win the state like President Obama has. And I think now we're talking about the nuances of the law and Hillary Clinton and how she and her team were careless. I think, you know, you could argue if you're trying to argue against Donald Trump saying it's a rigged system, that the FBI, you know, an Obama administration official making this announcement on the day Hillary Clinton had hoped to have a great news cycle doesn't really fit into that narrative that they're in cahoots with Hillary Clinton.
I mean, does it matter about trustworthiness? We know she's not doing well when she's polling on trustworthiness, but do voters care at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think trustworthiness, we've seen in exit polls going back to Iowa, going back to New Hampshire, is something Democratic voters said was a problem for them. That being said, Hillary Clinton still got enough votes all the way to California to win the nomination. But I think it's something that maybe would keep some voters who are Democratic, who absolutely despise Donald Trump, on the edge a little bit, maybe not that excited about Hillary Clinton. And again, the FBI Director James Comey spending 15 minutes dissecting the ways that she kind of broke the rules without being really accountable, would make me, if I were an independent voter, you know, trying to consider how excited I'd be for Hillary Clinton, second guess that decision. I think it's a huge problem for her.
But Amber and Liz, I want to ask you this. She's going up against Donald Trump, and I'm not saying that to play each one side against the other, but Major Garrett pointed out something very interesting, or somebody that we spoke to earlier pointed out something interesting, that a lot of Republicans are saying, look, if this was anybody else but Donald Trump, this would be a layup.
Right.
Because this is something that you could point to, but when you've got Trump and you've got the thing that happened this weekend with the anti-Semitic star, you've got the Trump University thing still brewing in the background. Chris Christie is a potential running mate. He's got his own issues.
Right.
I mean, this isn't an easy road to climb.
Well, it's so funny because every time Donald Trump messes up, we say the same thing. If he were running against anyone but Hillary Clinton,
He'd be done.
You're right. So it's a bizarre election. We have the two most disliked candidates in history, and so it's almost like watching a really intense volley, at Wimbledon. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing going on here. But back to the broader point here. This is bad news. This is bad news in a short-term way for Hillary Clinton. You know, this sharp language that Director Comey used today. But in the long run, good news, because she's not getting indicted. She was going to have to take her lumps at some point, and it's better now than closer to the convention or closer to the election.
Let me ask Amber one thing, too, as well, because, Amber, we've been saying this about Hillary Clinton since she was First Lady. There are a set of rules that the Clintons play by and another set of rules for everybody else. Hillary has, I mean, the things that we've been hearing about Hillary Clinton have been in the public eye, under public scrutiny for the last 25 years.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes, you know, this whole FBI and email problem for her such a nagging problem. I disagree that it's going to go away, you know, after a few days in the news cycle, because you have Clinton saying from the very beginning of her campaign, this presidential campaign, hey, I followed all the rules. Then she says, I followed all the rules to the best of my knowledge. You know, nothing I sent or received was classified at the time. You have the FBI director, an Obama administration official, directly countering that in no uncertain terms today. I think you're absolutely right that voters have this ingrained image of the Clintons, playing by their own rules, and this fits into that narrative so easily. If you're a Republican, you have a layup to keep making this bumper sticker case over and over and over again throughout November.
But, you know, Director Comey's, and calling him an Obama administration official is a little bit misleading. You know, the FBI is an independent position. They have 10-year terms for that reason. And I think his independence is pretty unimpeachable. He's been widely praised by Republicans. I think that is why you've seen not as much outrage as many ad hominem attacks against Comey as you usually would, because he is seen as a very independent figure.
All right, Liz Smith, we thank you very much. Amber Phillips at the Washington Post, we thank you as well.